Welcome to our series, The Analog Renaissance. This is Volume 1, Drawing from Observation, and Episode 1, where we're going to focus on lead types. I'll also give you some information on what you can expect from the upcoming series. For the past decade, I've been using the same book, Francis Ching's Design Drawing, the second edition now. Really good textbook. I know there's a third edition and I believe a fourth edition is going to be released in August. That sort of starts to talk about some computer stuff in it. The newer one goes into some discussion about AI. This book from 1953, the publisher Reinhold, there's a couple others by this publisher that I do have as well, talks very detailed information about presentation methods. And this one in particular is pencil techniques, and they have all of the different types of technique that need to be used, all the different types of pencils, the 10 type of strokes, combining techniques. They go into materials and equipment. They talk about perspective, shades and shadows, and then they have in the back an index of architects and renderers. And so in the back of the book are, but there's a series of images of renderings that were done that varying kind. And this whole textbook has, or I don't know if it's a textbook, but procedure book has a ton of examples. I was hoping this year to really focus on a back to basics type of teaching architectural graphics and merge the necessity of understanding paraline projection, multi-view drawing, perspective with these presentation technique strategies, and getting ourselves more comfortable using tools and making our way through understanding how we can control and how we can present things quickly by hand without a computer at the ready when we're in meetings. So what I was hoping to do through the next videos that I create is kind of going through and practicing these techniques using some of these older books. I thought it was important to maybe start somewhere, because I've been a little anxious, I would say, about thinking how to start this set of videos. So I thought I would start with the book that really inspired me to slow down and think about how I wanted to reformat my class. I've been teaching architectural graphics since 2012. I've been teaching this class since 2012. And it's an introductory course implementing traditional methods of representation. This course focuses on developing techniques required to understand, interpret, represent, and analyze space and material. And the outcomes of the course are to identify and define various drawing methods and techniques, interpret and arrange appropriate line type, line weight, and line quality, to demonstrate an understanding of paraline drawing constructions, including orthographic projection and three-dimensional projection techniques, and to demonstrate an understanding of basic graphic representation skills. So I thought some of the techniques that were, in the Ching book from chapter, chapter 2, that I sort of always overlooked and didn't take a lot of, I didn't put a lot of value on this work. I want to take a step back because I'm seeing that these books that I stumbled upon start there. So what I did, I went through this book and I sort of examined some of the things that they talk about. And so materials that they suggested is kind of where I began. So that was sort of in the middle of the book. And they were using a series of graphite pencils with a wide range from the harder lead to the softer lead. They also had some charcoal, some carbon and litho pencils, different exercises of strokes. So all of these things I'm going to work through. And notice they talk about like how to sharpen the pencil for some of these. right? And if you did a lot of those CTBS tests where you filled in the circles, or you did a lot of math by pencil, you might have a preference or understand what a flat on a pencil means versus a point. And I just love these pages, and I haven't done this in a really long time. And I think my comfort level on all of these skills has waned. And I think it would be good for me to start at the basics again as well. So what I've done is I went and found some examples of materials, just a simple sharpener, a eraser, this set of drawing pencils that have a range of leads, and then simple drawing book. And I also, this is an 8.5 by 11 sketchbook, acid-free heavyweight paper, and it's 80 pounds. So it's not very heavy, but it's definitely heavier than your copy paper. And then to facilitate some of these techniques and practices, sort of inspired by this book cover, which is a little bit larger than our 8.5 by 11, I made myself this 8.5 by 11 template, so I can just trace in this book where I will be having those practices and techniques. So I'm going to open this, and we will maybe start off just by opening everything and starting with some practice. I have an eraser already open, so I am not probably going to open that eraser. So that one's interesting. It says dust-free. I don't think I've ever used a dust-free eraser. And I've got this nice set of pencils. Now, surprisingly, I have a lot of art tools, but I didn't have a set of pencils like this. I used to, but I had taken them into school and they all got used. So I've purchased myself a new set. And I get really fussy when pencils have been dropped, and then you try to sharpen them and the pencil head just keeps going. So I like that this came in a little case. And then of course I do have multiple pencil sharpeners, but this one came with this kit. And in this drawing book, hasn't been started, hasn't been used. One thing I was concerned about is if it will lay flat, and it does. It looks like it lays pretty nicely. This is where we will start working through some exercises. And so the theory here was that this could be set down on the page, and I can just trace those squares so I don't have to draw them out. And this was just a piece of cardboard from my frosted mini wheats. And I drew 1/2-inch spaces around everything, and these are 2-inch squares. And I left myself an inch in the gutter and an inch along the bottom. And again, you don't have to be that specific about it, but I thought this would save time rather than having to draw those out every time I want to practice something. We sort of get into materials and equipment. Part 2 starts to talk about technique, I believe. So I am going to start there. Yeah, that's exactly where we've got a series of techniques. So I thought I might start with our examples of just getting to know my leads. So I have 12 pencils here, and I have 12 little rectangles or squares to draw in. And if you notice, these are kind of fluid motions, it looks like, just sort of rubbing back and forth on the pencil. And so I was going to practice that and label them. So I'm going to keep the video going as I walk through that. I probably won't be talking, but just making my way through from the hardest lead up to the softest. Now the hardest lead is the H's. So we've got a 6H, a 4H, a 2H, an H, and an HB. B is a soft lead, and they go up in softness. They're ranging from very soft all the way to very hard. And they're saying 6B to 9H. I have seen 12Bs, so I know that they go a little bit higher. I think I'm going to start by, you know, just having a really smooth and simple fill, and maybe transition to some lines on here, depending on how that goes. And I'm going to use ink, a pen to draw these boxes, but I'm just going to get going. So you won't hear me talking for the next bit. I'm just going to keep myself moving. And one thing I'll say before I go silent is you might notice I'm not being too precious. Right? That seems to be a little bit off, and I'm not going to worry about it. So I'm not trying to be perfect. I'm trying to practice. And I know someone will say practicing imperfectly will make him perfect, right? But at this point, practice and getting moving is more important than the perfection. Because I've been wanting to start this for a few weeks now and haven't got myself in gear. You'll notice I'm going to use the pencils in order, and I'm going to label each of these blocks, and then I'm using like a motion as if you're coloring with a crayon, lightly across the page. One of the things that I want to make sure we maybe talk about is, if you notice, the pencil tips on these are really sharp and pointy, and here this lead is softer and somewhat thicker, so they have sort of a blunt edge to the lead, because the lead is thicker, and you can see that in the cone of the pencil. And one of the things I've been doing is holding my pencil like you should. Ignore my gardening. I have one here too, blisters from gardening. But we have the pencil, I've been holding it like you normally would, between my thumb and forefinger, resting on my middle finger. I tend to sometimes have it rest on when I'm writing, on my ring finger, but I know that's not appropriate. And I've been holding the pencil sort of at a low angle, so my hand, the height of this book is helping my hand be a little bit lower, and holding the edge of the pencil. So I'm not using the actual tip, I'm using the edge. And that was more difficult to maintain on these rougher, harder leads. These soft leads, I'm hardly doing any work. The lead just comes to the paper. It's really a lovely experience. And you can see, like here you see the lines a little bit more distinctly, even though I was trying to give a nice even pressure and nice even like wash of graphite. But it's a lot easier to achieve with these softer leads. So that is a series of experiments with those leads. Very simple. That didn't take very long. Not even sure how long that took. But I now am somewhat familiar with and comfortable with the types of lead, the way the lead feels on the paper. Maybe we practice this idea of spacing and density, creating values through some of these different techniques. I'm going to leave this here for today, and we're going to pick up on Friday with another set of exercises.